Hello, hi y'all, it's Kimberly here. I'm going to, thank you for coming to my channel, everybody. Thank you so much. Haven't made a video for a couple of days. I've been so busy. I did get some things I ordered in the mail, and I kind of think I know what they are. I know what one of them is for sure, but I just wanted to open it on thing. I think I might know this one. So I'm going to go ahead and open this one first. I think I know what it is. Okay, I think this is a camera. I forgot. Really, I forgot what it was. I think it goes to a camera, and I think it's like some kind of strap that you hold your camera with. It looks like. I don't know. I have to figure it out. It's got a little screw right here, and it's got this little padded thing, like, I think you hold on to it or something. You attach it to, I don't know, there's no direction, but I'll have to figure out what it is. I know I ordered one a long time ago, and I think this is it. I ordered several items, and it's taken forever for them to get here. And this, let's see, I hope it's the one I think it is. It is, but I think it might be the wrong one. Let me see. Okay, so this is a face mask. And, oh, no it is. I guess it is the right one. Well, it is a neck gaiter for, it's the same thing as this, but I think it's just a bigger one. This is the mask that I use. I tuck it under my ponytail or my hat, and I wear it, you know, because in Texas here, we've got the mandatory face mask policy thing going on. And a lot of the businesses have signs on the doors that you have to wear a face mask before you can come in. And not all of them, but almost all of them. But I think it is mandatory. But our mayor from the two towns where I live and work in, they're kind of being a little bit relaxed about it, I guess. I mean, I see tons of people walking down the street without them and everything, but if you want to go into a business that almost all of them have a sign, you have to wear a face mask. So this has a really colorful, I don't know if y'all can see, a little puppy dog with the tongue hanging out. I just thought it was so cute. So, and I love dogs, you know. So there's so neat. I've been waiting for this one for a long time. So, and I already have a couple of other ones. I've got the regular, like the little black one, but I wear this one. Also, it's good for sun protection. It's originally for like when you're on a motorcycle and you cover your face from the bugs and the sun and everything like that. But they're really useful now, so I wear one of these. And, okay, that's that. And I have a story time today about home invasions. And as you know, a lot of people who've already seen my channel, I have pit bulls, and I have big dogs because of something that happened to me. And I love dogs. I've always loved dogs, so I've always had dogs. And I always have a big dog. Didn't have to be a pit bull, but I just ended up getting a pit bull. A friend gave one to me a long time ago, like 30-something years ago. So I've been having those kind of dogs, and I know there's so much controversy about pit bulls, and there are attacks, and there are things, and that's a whole nother story. I want to do a video on that too. But I had a pit bull. Well, he was a pit bull mix. He was a mix between a pit bull and an American bulldog. And he had a massive head and neck. It's like he almost didn't have a neck. And I had trouble finding him a collar, because at that time, you know, we didn't have so many of these big dogs like that. I mean, there were like mastiffs and a few bigger dogs. Or I think mastiff's probably one of the biggest dogs around, especially for the neck girth. But a lot of pet stores didn't sell collars for dogs that big, or they were very expensive. They were like $30, $25, $35 for a large collar like that back then. And, or you had to look around for them. And a lot of times you had to just use a belt for a collar. And that's what I had to end up doing with my dog, because his neck was so huge. And I was at home. I lived by myself. I was very young. I think I was about 22 or 23 or something. And I was in the kitchen. I lived in this little tiny one-bedroom duplex, and it had a front door that had the glass in the front, and it was real rickety. It wasn't like a real great neighborhood, and had like the front panel was glass, and it had a curtain over it, which I hated that. I was so scared somebody was going to break in. And but I had my dogs, and I was in the kitchen cooking one day, and all of a sudden I heard this, actually my dog was sitting kind of to the side of the stove. I always made them, pit bulls are very Velcro-like dogs. I don't know if you can even say that on YouTube. I don't think you can say that word. I don't know. But anyway, sticky dogs, they tend to be right next to you a lot of times. They're very loyal, get very attached to you. And they do that with kids too. They kind of glob onto the kids sometimes if you grow up with a pit bull, and they don't let anything get around the kids. And a lot of times that's one reason why some attacks do occur on people, because dogs that are very attached to children, not just pit bulls. That's true with golden retrievers, even poodles, German shepherds, anything. When a dog gets attached to a child, especially if the child is about the size of the dog, or maybe smaller around that, they tend to be a little bit dominant over the child, and they're very protective of anything else that comes around it. But that's the kind of dog I had. And I was in the kitchen. I had another dog that was a German Shepherd Doberman mix, and I was in the kitchen cooking, and the dogs I noticed they kind of perked up, and the pit bull, he just kind of like, it was weird the way he was sitting. He just like scooted his neck over. There's a part, the wall was there, and the stove was there, and the front door was around, and the living room was in the next room. And you could, if you looked around the stove, you could see the door. And I looked around, and I didn't see anything. And then I heard my dog he didn't really growl or bark, but he had the lowest tone growl that I've ever heard in a dog. And I kind of have a hearing deficiency with low tones, but I barely heard it. And I just looked at it, I knew something was up. And I looked around the corner again, and I saw the imprint. The curtain was there, but it was kind of not really sheer, but kind of. But the guy had pressed his face up against the glass. He was looking in, and he tried to open the door. He tried to jiggle the handle and open the door. And I just, immediately it scared me to death. And I just saw the outline of a man's face. And I just went like that to my dog, and they both immediately, they ran to the door, and I thought they were going to break the glass out of the door. And they pounced on it, full force. And it was a rickety old door, and I thought it was going to break. And I ran over there, opened the door, let the dogs out. And I saw like this guy, he was already like 2 or 3 houses down, and there was an alleyway going down across the street, He went around the houses, and I just barely saw like a pair of legs and pants running around that last fence or house or whatever. And I'm assuming that was him. And my dogs took off after him. And I normally would never do that. Never let my dogs chase after anybody. But at that moment I was so scared, and I was so young, and I lived by myself. And I waited about 10 minutes, and I got a little worried, and they came trotting back down the sidewalk, and I never would let my dogs out. They never went out without a leash, without me or anything. I wasn't that kind of person to just let my dogs roam around ever. But that time I did it for self-protection, and they came back, and they were like licking their lips, and I don't know what happened, but they came back, put them inside, and I never had any trouble with that again, because a lot of people knew that I had that dog. And one day I was sitting on the porch with that big dog, and He was black with very light golden brindle on his the side of his ribs. He was beautiful. And he was just sitting on the porch with me, and this lady was walking down the sidewalk, and she didn't see him, I guess, and she got to the house right next to us, and then she walked right in front of our driveway, and my dog let out the loudest, most low-tone bark. It even shook me. And that lady, she was carrying her groceries or something, and she screamed at the top of her lungs, and she threw her groceries in the air. I never heard anybody scream so loud before in my life. And even my dog was like taken aback by it. And I started laughing so hard. I felt really bad. I put my dog in the house, and I went over there and I helped her pick up her groceries and whatnot. And I told her, my dog won't hurt you, but he does have a loud bark. And it's mostly all show, but I just remember that. And then a few years later, I lived in another place, not in the best area, but I had moved there because I thought it was a better area, and it was kind of in the country. It was a few miles from town, and it was down this road where people had bought acres of land like years ago, and they put houses on it, and there was a few businesses, and it was a paved road, but it was a very narrow, country road, and the acre I lived on, this man had put trailers back to back to back, and on 1 acre, there was like a row of probably like 10 trailers, just one after the other, and you barely had enough room to pull in and park your car in front of each trailer. And I lived in one of the first ones, and it actually was like a military duplex. He had bought a couple of those and moved them out there, and there was like one bedroom on each side. It was long like a trailer house, and I was in the very front one. And there was, the day I went to go look at that place, it was so calm and quiet, and there was a pasture next door where I could walk my dogs, and I was like, oh, this is so nice, and I could live in the front one. I had a little space to park my car, and that Saturday night, I found out it was like a war zone in that area. It was the worst place I could have picked to live. There was constant fighting, arguing, drugs, drug addicts, alcoholics. I mean, I probably called the cops about 10 times, to the point where at first they couldn't find it, and then they slowly started to be able to get there within 10 minutes. The first few times I called them, it took them probably about 25 minutes because they couldn't find it. And one night, it was like a Friday or Saturday night, and everybody was screaming and yelling and everything, and I was thinking, oh, I gotta call the cops again. And it made my dog neurotic. It really, really kind of ruined my dog, and I'd like to talk about that in another story too, my pit bull. And this guy walked up to my door, and he started kicking and yelling at the door, and thank goodness I had a metal door. And he got louder and louder, and he was trying to break the door down, and he was, kicking as hard as he could, and I was scared. I called the cops and everything, and I was on the phone with them, and I was trying to describe it to him, and my dogs were going crazy, and thank goodness I had my dogs with me. And he was kicking that door so hard. I was worried about him busting the door jamb, because the door was metal, he couldn't break it. But I was afraid he would kick the door jamb in, and this went on for about 15 or 17, 18 minutes, I don't know, by the time the cops got there. So, had he broke in, he could have, if he'd had a gun or been a dangerous person, he could have killed me. But he was high on drugs, and he was so high, when the cop got there, you could still smell his body odor from the drugs he was taking. I don't know if I can even say that word. I don't know what words you can say on YouTube. I need to look all this up. And you could still smell it on my porch. And I told him, that is not me. That is that guy. And it lingered there for about 20 or 30 minutes. His odor did. And the cop was telling me, yeah, that's the smell of people who do those kind of put those things in their body. Try not to say the wrong words. And thank goodness I had my dogs with me. And that's one of the reasons why I have big dogs, you know, for that kind of protection. And in the place I live now, I live in a smaller town next to the big town that I did live in. And I haven't had any issues with anybody doing that, but just about everybody knows that I have these big dogs. So I don't have any problems, really. And that's one of the reasons, you know, I have big dogs, and I will probably always have dogs. You know, I love dogs, and I probably will get a horse. I want to get a horse, maybe when I retire or move out in the country or something like that, and get a place where I can have one. But I just wanted to tell that little story about that. It was really scary and nerve-wracking living by myself, you know, and that happening, and I felt much safer with my dogs. Well, thank you all for listening. I'm gonna probably do another story time or I'll post another video maybe tomorrow or the next day. Thank you all. Thank you so much.